Okay, today we're diving into one of the most, frankly, astonishing paradoxes I've come across from World War II history.
It really is something else.
Yeah, imagine this. A figure deeply embedded within the Nazi power structure. I mean, connected to some of its darkest actions, apparently.
Right at the heart of it.
But simultaneously, he's a devout Benedictine monk, a secret Vatican agent, actively working to undermine the very regime he seems to be serving.
It sounds like fiction, doesn't it?
It really does. We're talking about Hermann, sometimes known as Keller. Our sources say he infiltrated Himmler's SS intelligence wing, the SD.
While also rescuing Jews, fighting Nazism from the inside.
How is that even possible? That's what we're getting into.
Exactly.
So this deep dive, we're going to pull back the curtain on this hidden network, explore how this clandestine group, stretching from the Vatican to German monasteries, even military intelligence.
How they use spiritual and, well, tactical deception against Hitler.
We'll unpack the layers of this secret war. It wasn't just fought on battlefields, was it? It was in the realm of faith, ideas, audacious subterfuge.
And it gives you, the listener, a really unique perspective on resistance, the nature of evil, and, frankly, how complex history can be.
Okay, so to understand all this, we probably need to go back a bit. Before Hitler's full rise, right, to the early 1920s.
That's the place to start. With Hermann's mentor, actually, Abbot Albinus Schockleiter.
Right, Abbot Albinus, described as a staunch opponent of German nationalism, a devotee of the old Habsburg dynasty.
Very much so. And he showed incredible defiance early on. There's this famous story from Prague.
Oh, yeah. What happened?
Well, he refused to recognize the new Czech government, kept the old flag flying from his monastery.
Wow.
And then, faced with an anti-German mob, he used the hymn of St. Wenceslaus to basically silence them. Said he'd die for the Czech people and the church. A public stand against that nationalist tide.
So he was openly anti-nationalist, but the Vatican shared his alarm too, didn't they? About where things were heading.
Absolutely. Albinus's concerns about, the unraveling of Catholic Europe, they were definitely shared in Rome, particularly by Eugenio Pacelli, the future Pope Pius XII.
Pacelli, okay.
Pacelli himself called the Versailles Treaty an international absurdity. He saw it fueling German nationalism. So there was this deep early opposition to the political currents that would eventually, give birth to Nazism.
Okay, but here's the twist, right? Because despite being publicly against pan-Germanism, our sources say Albinus actually infiltrated Hitler's inner circle in the early 20s.
Yes, that's the first case to the deep cover stuff. He insinuated himself into Hitler's circle, apparently acting on behalf of the Vatican and Pacelli.
How did he even manage that? He supposedly charmed people like Putzi Hamstangl, feigning sympathy for the Nazis.
It speaks volumes, doesn't it? About the Vatican's foresight, perhaps?
Yeah.
They saw the ideological threat early, understood that sometimes direct opposition isn't the only way, or maybe not the most effective.
So, infiltration as a strategy from the get-go.
A risky game of appearances. Gather intelligence, subtly undermine from within. It really set a precedent for what came later.
Which brings us to another key figure, Pater Odo, Duke Karl von Württemberg, originally.
That's him. A Benedictine monk, renounced his title, but kept all those high-level connections, aristocratic and church networks.
And his view of Hitler was intense.
Very. Not just a political tyrant. Odo saw him as a spiritual destroyer of Christian civilization. He believed that without weapons, their only real option was moral, mental, or spiritual resistance.
And he put that belief into action.
He did. He created this clandestine Catholic resistance rooted in monasteries using sacraments, subterfuge, quite remarkable.
And he recruited Hermann.
Recruited Hermann as his lieutenant around 1930. That's Hermann's formal entry into this shadow war.
You get a sense of Odo's influence, too, that pilgrimage in 1931.
Oh, the one in Württemberg, yes. As president of the Catholic youth there, he organized 50,000 teachers and students to gather at St. Martin's Abbey.
50,000. The sources point out the Hitler Youth, even at 100,000 strong, couldn't manage that kind of gathering in one place.
It was a clear show of force, a statement of unity, of defiance, done peacefully.
And underpinning this action was a strong intellectual, theological element too, wasn't there? With Anselm Stoltz.
Absolutely. Stoltz, another theologian and monk, was a huge influence on Hermann. They actually co-authored works together.
Including that 4-volume Summa Theologica, published between 39 and 42, while Hermann was supposedly working for Himmler.
Exactly. The sources call it a theological Molotov cocktail lobbed into the heart of the Nazi Empire.
A theological Molotov cocktail. I like that. What made it so explosive?
Well, they were essentially recasting Catholic theology, reasserting the Church's spiritual authority over the state, grounding Christian identity in community, not in state sovereignty or race.
Directly contradicting Nazi ideology.
Fundamentally, and they did it cleverly, using what Leo Strauss called secret writing.
Secret writing. How does that work in theology?
It involved, complex labyrinthine Latin, pulling in diverse citations, Hebrew prophets, church fathers, even Maimonides, sudden shifts in tone.
Designed to go over the heads of censors.
Precisely. Crafted to be overlooked by, as Herman apparently mocked them, these stupid Nazis. But for those who knew how to read it, it was an encoded attack on the regime's foundations.
Intellectual Trojan horses, you said, embedding counter-narratives right under their noses.
Exactly that. Subtly arguing for human dignity, for communion, against the state's absolute power and racial purity nonsense.
And Herman did this in his own essays, too, like the one in 33, Thy Kingdom Come to Us.
Yes, described as a veiled takedown of Carl Schmitt.
Hitler's jurist.
Right. Schmitt believed religion basically sanctified political power. Herman argued the opposite, that the church might need to go underground, not just retreat.
Okay, so with that background, the early moves, the theological subversion, let's really get into Herman's dual life, because this is where it gets incredibly complex.
It really does. The moral tightrope is almost unimaginable.
So, late 1930s, he joins the SD, the SS intelligence wing. Officially, his mission from Himmler is to infiltrate the Vatican.
Correct. But his real mission is the opposite.
And this leads to some deeply disturbing territory. The accusations later that he dispatched Jews to death camps, including the philosopher Edith Stein.
Yes, those accusations exist, but the picture is muddier. Other sources say SS men, not Herman, arrested Edith Stein, someone Herman had actually tried to help earlier.
So, conflicting accounts.
Very conflicting. And we know Herman did actively help other Jews escape. So was he forced into complicity to maintain cover? Did his cover require him to appear involved in horrific acts?
It's the core of the ambiguity, isn't it? Appearing as a villain to some while secretly acting as a savior to others.
And the toll it took. His letters mention severe heart pains, tristitia, that deep spiritual despondency, especially when assigned to horrible tasks like working near an Eichmann unit.
You can only imagine the internal conflict.
Unbearable, likely.
Alongside this deep cover, they were involved in actual tactical sabotage, too.
Oh, yes. Odo and Herman had this plan, pretty audacious, to plant 2 explosive charges inside the SA.
Inside the stormtroopers. How?
Not literal bombs. It was about exposing moral corruption. Specifically, publicizing Ernst Röhm's homosexual activities, his use of male prostitutes.
Ah, hitting them on the moral rot angle.
Exactly. It led to a public break, accusations flew,
Right.
undermining the SA's image. And Herman is also recruiting spies.
Catholic spies.
Yes, to infiltrate the SS Junker academies. Himmler's breeding grounds for a neo-pagan elite, as the sources put it, trying to get eyes and ears inside.
And the funding for all this came from the Nazis themselves.
In a beautifully cynical twist, yes.
Yeah.
Herman used Nazi funds for his travel. First-class rail, best hotels. The Nazis were literally bankrolling their own undoing.
Incredible. Now, what about the Vatican's role during the war itself? Pius XII? There's always so much debate about his silence.
It's complex. Pacelli, before becoming pope, ran a kind of secret church to keep a legal foothold. As Pius XII, he seems to have balanced strategic silence, which critics obviously focus on, with moments of really quite open defiance.
Like the Mitbrender Sorge encyclical in 37.
Exactly, with burning concern. Read from pulpits across Germany. It didn't name Hitler, but everyone knew who it meant, calling him a mad prophet with repulsive arrogance. Hitler supposedly flew into a rage, chewed the carpet.
Not exactly silent, then.
Not at all. It was a direct spiritual attack on Nazi ideology.
And his Christmas addresses during the war.
Also significant, especially 1942, condemning the worship of the state, mentioning the fate of hundreds of thousands marked for death solely because of their race.
A clear reference, even without naming names explicitly.
Very clear for the time. And in 43, after the Tehran conference, an even stronger warning, a trumpet blasted the future judgment. These weren't ambiguous messages if you were listening.
And beyond the Pope's words, there was action on the ground, rescuing people.
Tireless efforts. Peter Odo set up a whole refugee network offices in Paris, Brussels, The Hague. He used his royal connections, like with Swedish King Gustav V, to get citizenship for Jewish refugees.
Trying to get people out.
Yes, steering them towards South America, even dealing with figures like the Brazilian dictator Vargas, whatever it took.
And Herman was involved in this too, directly.
Yes, despite his cover. Working with people like Abbé Renaud in France to hide outlaws, communists, other resistance folks, Jews, finding safe houses, smugglers over the Pyrenees.
He personally helped individuals escape.
Sources mention him aiding specific people, like arranging escapes to Carmelite convents in Spain, which again starkly contrasts with those earlier accusations.
Yeah.
It just shows the layers, the complexity of what he was doing.
And then there's the incident in Rome in 43, halting the SS raids on Jews.
A key moment. Cardinal Faulhaber and a German general, Stahl, contacted Himmler directly. Himmler, maybe looking for an excuse based on military necessity, ordered the raids stopped.
Saving thousands of lives.
An estimated 6,000 lives saved through that direct intervention. Real, tangible impact.
So this network wasn't operating in total isolation. It connected with other German resistance, right? Like within the military intelligence, the Abwehr.
Absolutely crucial connection. Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, head of the Abwehr.
A principled anti-Nazi, apparently.
Yes. He reportedly cultivated chaos in his own agency to frustrate Heydrich and the SS. And crucially, Canaris was the one who chose Hermann for many of these missions. He trusted him.
And Canaris was involved in disinformation, the Black Orchestra.
Masterful stuff. Feeding Heydrich and the SD false intelligence, playing on their paranoia about internal enemies, about Jewish influence. This created smokescreens, cover for genuine resistance work.
Like getting Himmler to bite on fake intel.
Exactly. Like the story about the Vatican getting info on the euthanasia program it revealed, Himmler was already exploring separate peace feelers. Canaris used their own biases against them.
He pulled off some amazing stunts, that fake invasion, sending 30,000 soldiers disguised as refugees across Europe.
Audacious doesn't even cover it. Using Vatican routes. Totally deceiving the SS, SD, Gestapo, the foreign ministry about troop movements. A strategic triumph, as the source calls it.
But dealing with the Allies was problematic, wasn't it?
Very. This brings up a really important point, something for you, the listener, to consider.
Yeah.
Could the war have ended sooner if the Allies had been more flexible?
Because of Roosevelt's unconditional surrender policy?
Precisely. It created a huge dilemma for the German resistance. People like Canaris, General Beck, they felt nobody would risk their neck to overthrow Hitler if the only outcome was Germany's total destruction and potentially submitting blindly to Stalin.
Made it harder to recruit support for a coup.
Extremely hard. There were contacts, of course. Alan Dulles, the OSS chief in Bern Theory, he was Hermann's main contact. George Earle in Istanbul. They argued for engaging with the resistance.
But their efforts were shut down.
Ultimately suppressed, yes. Pius XII had his own post-war vision too, the X Report. A decentralized pan-European system focused on human dignity, trying to prevent future tyranny, and contain Stalin.
A vision quite different from the Allied plans.
Very different. And Cardinal Spellman, Pius's emissary to Roosevelt, tried to bridge that gap. He pressed FDR for assurances about not making deals with Stalin that would endanger Catholic nations.
But the unconditional surrender policy remained firm.
It did. And the sources strongly suggest this policy, however well-intentioned, inadvertently created a massive barrier for the German resistance, possibly prolonging the war and definitely shaping post-war Europe in ways the Vatican had feared.
A major what-if of history.
A huge one.
So, as the war nears its end, things come to a head for this resistance network.
Yes, the climax is tragic for many. There were those failed assassination attempts, Trescow's bomb on Hitler's plane freezing.
Right, the pencil detonator.
And then Count von Stauffenberg's Operation Valkyrie plot. Its failure led to a brutal crackdown.
And Himmler himself started wavering.
Sensing the end was near, he started talking to Schellenberg about maybe killing Hitler, taking over, negotiating with the West. He even released some clergy from concentration camps, admitting the church had proved to be the strongest. A remarkable admission from him.
But the crackdown was ruthless, Canaris.
Himmler had protected Canaris for a while, but eventually key resistance files were found. Canaris was arrested, executed, brutally hanged on a meat hook.
Horrific.
And many others followed. Nebbe, Etscheit, von Dani, Dietrich Bonhoeffer. The price of resistance was incredibly high.
Yet Hermann survived, miraculously, it seems.
His escapes were, well, cinematic almost.
Yeah.
An SS man shooting at him on an airfield. He only survived because the plane he was supposed to be on got shot down by Americans moments later.
Just pure luck or fate?
And then he spread that rumor of his own death, beheaded by the retreating SS and dumped in the Seine, just to vanish.
But he had one more major act. Paris.
The liberation of Paris. Hitler ordered the city leveled. General von Choltitz was supposed to do it?
But he didn't.
No. And according to the sources, Hermann spoke privately with Choltitz, persuaded him to surrender to de Gaulle's Free French instead, saving the city, and maybe, as the general saw it, saving his own honor.
An incredible final intervention. And after the war, what became of Herman?
He lived quietly, went back to monastic life at Mariendonk, continued his studies, played the organ, lived simply in a barn behind the convent, apparently.
And still influential.
Yes, involved in theological translations. His insights, his understanding of those deep moral and spiritual battles continued to resonate. His survival allowed that knowledge to persist.
Looking at the bigger picture, the post-war world, did this resistance have a lasting impact?
I think the sources argue strongly that it did. You had the harsh Morgenthau Plan proposed for Germany, demanding expiation.
And also the drive to rebuild.
And the Pope's vision, that United States of Europe idea, the emphasis on human dignity, it fed into that reconstruction effort. Those Catholic strongholds in the West Bavaria, Rhineland, Württemberg became a kind of moral engine for the new Europe, emerging from the Stundennull, the zero hour.
And that's reflected in Germany's new constitution.
Directly. The highest principle in the new German basic law, the inviolable dignity of man. Die Würde des Menschen ist unantastbar.
Where did that come from?
Not primarily from secular philosophers, the sources emphasize. It came directly from Catholic social teaching, particularly papal encyclicals, a profound, often uncredited legacy of that spiritual resistance.
So wrapping this up, this deep dive has really uncovered a hidden layer of WWII resistance, hasn't it?
Absolutely. Extraordinary people making impossible choices under the cover of collaboration, fighting this deep spiritual and tactical battle.
It just shows history is so much more nuanced, so much more complex and secretly fought than we often think. And maybe the final thought for you, the listener. The story of this Catholic resistance, it really forces us to confront a powerful idea, doesn't it? That sometimes fighting evil effectively isn't about the direct, obvious confrontation.
Sometimes it's the deep infiltration, the quiet subversion.
Maintaining moral clarity, even when you publicly seem compromised, it makes you wonder what other hidden battles are being fought right now under layers of contradictions, all for a greater good we can't quite see yet.
A sobering but important thought to end on.